The first lesson in learning to awaken is never take lessons from anyone not awake or from anyone who says that they are. A man had a shop in which, for the merchandise he dealt in, he charged more for that which had already been used than for that which was new. Want to guess what it is he deals in? Come on, you should know. You've been doing business with him all your life. The first lesson in learning to awaken is never take lessons from anyone not awake or from anyone who says that they are. I'm sorry. I just realized somebody's already read that one. A guard rushed into the throne room exclaiming, "A madman has holed up in the castle's highest turret, and from that position is causing contention and confusion throughout the kingdom." But this was not news to some at court. If your mind is not on what you're doing, two things are in place. One is that you're not using your mind as best as is possible. And the other is that what you're doing, you're not doing as best as you're able. Or, put simply, if your mind is not on what you're doing, you're not enlightened and awake, which is why you're never satisfied. Life does not move at the tempo of man, but rather man to that of life's. A fact life has chosen to withhold from man. A guy went to a mystic with a combination complaint and solicitation for additional information. "I am satisfied with what I know, but not satisfied with what I am." And the mystic replied, "If you were deserving in your satisfaction with what you know, then you'd know what to do to make yourself satisfied with what you are." No. In a 3D realm, without two teams, there is no sport. Without two words, there is no language. Without two minds, there is no thought, even within one man. Too seldom do men take the numbers game into account when trying to make sense of what life's about. In the arena of mental affairs, nothing is valued more than enthusiasm and excitement, real or otherwise, which from one view must always be otherwise in that the arena itself is totally pretend. You can't be a sufferer if you can't be found. Is that saying that you can't be made to suffer if those who would make you suffer can't find you? Come on. Those of you with any insight know better than that. You know by now that all of this is strictly about an individual man and what goes on in his thoughts. Oh, and as long as we've come upon this locale once again, look at this. You can't be found to be made to suffer when you're operating at a tempo non-standard for you. Someone asked a mystic why he didn't speak with more passion in his comments on that special subject. And he replied, "Were I to address men more enthusiastically, as though I wanted them to change and awaken, it would reveal but one thing, a sickness in my thinking. For no enlightened man cares whether others become enlightened or not." When one man heard of a popular song, "It Ain't Necessarily So," he thought, "What a redundant concept and lack of understanding the title reveals. For whatever it is, if you can put it in words and sing about it, it is perforce unnecessary." Not many people know the Gershwin brothers were involved in... But anyway, time is the illusionary realm of preferences. When your thoughts wander away from what you are doing now, they become hopelessly entangled in meaningless preferences. For with those wanting to awaken, all mental preferences are meaningless. Yet another basis for reminding yourself to keep your mind on what you're doing. They were really the life of many parties back then. George and his wife, Ira. Why do those with the interest to awaken have such a history of devotion to drumming? Why do those with the interest in enlightenment have such a history of denouncing drumming? Who realizes some sort of something going on between habitual thoughts, ain't they all, and a constant tempo, of which an ordinary life, ain't they also? And now we move on to another area. More about tempo. What good is knowing the right answer on the wrong test day? Everything's great, in theory. Wait, all kinds of ideas are great in theory. Okay, all sorts of theories are great in theory. All right already. The mind can find almost any idea to sound good as long as attention is not directed to the immediate here and now. The awareness of the here and now is the destroyer of all illusions. Headline, more about parrots. Maybe. One man asserts that, contrary to claims of a solitary consumption, that we have in fact ingested 2 talking birds. One apparently subsequent to the other, and one seemingly with a more forceful voice than the other. The purpose of, the objective reality of, these perceived differences, he admits he's unable to provide. And yet the validity of his observations, he insists, remains. More about parrots, maybe. With full attention given thereto, the immediate moment will always be found to be empty, impassionate, and uneventful. Ergo, the mind forever striving to introduce excitement thereto through imaginary pictures of other times and other places. Dreams are appropriate to the age of the dreamer. Nightmares appropriate to any age. Fumes arise from consumption, dreams from dreams. One man thought of the struggle to awaken as being always on the verge of a great discovery. But then again, some people never realize what it's about. There are no frauds at hand. Deceptions do not survive in the moment. Those who seek freedom from confusion should look to the immediate here and now. There is no other time, there is no other place, and once that is realized, how can uncertainty exist? Daydreams are not only a time machine and a spaceship, but an excitement factory as well. In the monastery's public lecture hall, a mystic so addressed the assembled: the reason it is so difficult to achieve enlightenment amidst the noise and activity of everyday life is, hey, could you people hold it down in that other room? I'm trying to talk in here. End quote, if you didn't notice. In the restroom of that same location was a sign which read, a day in which you have not done something that you normally do is one more day you have wasted. Attention travelers, if you do not care where a train is going, you can abandon your efforts to get off. A man asked a mystic, do you really know what life's all about? And the mystic replied, I think I do. And the man said, yeah, but everybody thinks they do. In response to which the mystic said, yes, but the difference is that I know and understand all of the many things that everyone else thinks life's about than what I know on top of it. When large lions eat smaller lions, what the smaller has in its stomach from earlier meals becomes irrelevant by fact of its consumption now by the larger. Tonight's Foxtrot dialogue. If they can't find you, they can't hurt you. Are you talking about ordinary thoughts in a man's awareness? You know we are, you semi-sweet princess, you. For sure we are. Now a dip, a bow, a curtsy, and a momentary retreat from the dance floor. Headline, Poser. Where lies safety between pleasantly agreeable and casually indifferent? Bland means different things to different people, but always the same to those who are bland. Animals are easiest tracked who walk at a constant pace. Okay, thoughts are dumbest that come and go at a reoccurring tempo. One man seeking that certain satisfaction concluded that the only effort he need make is to free himself from all mental wants. One guy's strictly private motto. I mean like when he's really alone in private. And it goes like this. I am tormented by words, tortured by thoughts. Forget about Satan and other alleged princes of darkness. The father of all evil for the few is rhythmical habit. Health flash, there is an antidote to any condition. A man in search of that certain satisfaction is like a walking around, living experiment. Another way to momentarily take the measure of the activity in man's brain is to see it existing dually as an aimless awareness, aka the mind, and a purposeful awareness, known amongst the few as grounds for awakening and freedom from the mind. One man's left ear yelled to his right one, "Watch out over your way, there's been a chemical spill." And now some news from the kitchen. There is no end to cannibalism. When one man's view became that his mind was suffering from continual, off-balancing 1-2 punches from the world of external conditions, he began to counteract it by getting in the first blow himself. And another one of those who know said, ignore the miracles that come and go and turn your attention to the miraculous that is with you every day. What's to be used is not down the road somewhere. The head of a mystical school so addressed the monks one day, I say that he who does not find his life fully tormented by words is not yet on the right road to our end. And everyone there seemed to understand that he was not referring to words you might hear with your ears. Further ramifications of habit equaling consistent tempos. In the higher latitudes, rhythm means death. The question has recently settled about one man's inquiring area. Do we seek deliverance of the mind or from the mind? And now some fashion news. Clothes lose any meaning once you realize that all suits and dresses are the same. And the winner of the debate is, all certainty is banished when attention is given only to the immediate here and the instant now. Hey, that's not the victor of a debate, but the end of all debates. Oh, well, I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say. Okay. Well, that's better. Well, okay, if you say so. The form of pride that bedevils the few has nothing to do with their looks. And the cure for self-deceit is simple. Self-discovery. Also all stupidity, but anyway. A father said to his son, "Be sure that you see this good and plain. If you gave your attention solely to the here and now, everything would be fine, for there are no problems in the here and now." But the lad asked, "Is there not any use of the mind that is not fruitless?" And he replied, "I just covered that." Then their uncle, in recognition of overhearing their conversation, changed his name to Bartow County so he'd be closer to Cartersville. A man went to see a mystic who always refused to talk about it, and said to him, "I know that you always refuse to talk about it, but isn't there something you will say to me about the effects enlightenment has on a man?" And the mystic weakened and replied, "A enlightened man is a happy man." And the fellow pondered this for a moment, then said, "Don't you mean an enlightened man?" And the mystic once again remembered why he usually refused to talk about it. Some of these are extremely deep and complex, and then others. The warrior in search of that satisfaction must employ as many weapons as does his opposition, whose number is beyond count. Though a single blow completes the task, untold strikes before it went. I remind you, for all ills are antidotes, but which only the few ever find, since scarce be any who even suspect the illusion of the ills. To ever escape, a man must be a drummer. He must be able to change tempos. To be enlightened is to be enlightened solely in this moment. And to be enlightened in this very moment is to be aware that each and every instant moment is empty, unmoving, and without desires of any kind. And if this description of enlightenment doesn't cover you in warm waves of near delirious delight, then your understanding of what this is all about is yet unrefined. That grand anticipation is fatal procrastination. And a man who knew said to some who wanted to, "If you do not delight in silence of all kinds, what is it that you expect to achieve with this?" Outside a discernible cadence, there alone, that certain satisfaction. Out of all the continuing ways that you could verbally plot man's position, insofar as it can be seen from this planet, this kind of 3D reality, one is to see him, according to what stomach you have for it, to see him strongly, all the way ranging from strongly affected to absolutely captive of conditions of being alive, that one of the verbal surveys would be to say that man is held captive by a certain rhythm. There is a rhythm. Let me get this out of the way. I have for several times it came to mind, and I have refrained from talking about tempo and rhythm because there has been, in the so-called occult and New Age areas, a historic claim that people, belief that people have, that there are all kinds of Funny hand gestures? No. No, not at all. Metaphysical vibrations. Coming out of crystals, coming out of Big Macs, White Castles, God knows what. And if you notice, there are religious rituals, and there are even what's assumed to be mystical disciplines and activities based upon rhythm, dancing, chanting. So if you'll disregard for the moment any idea you ever heard of all kinds of vibrations that people's aura or that their hamburger in their overcoat pocket emanates, there is a simple fact. It is known in a certain way in physics, in other words, in science, but people know it from everyday life, that there is a rhythm to life. The obvious being there's a rhythm to people living and dying, there's a rhythm to the movements of the planets, there's a rhythm to the change of the seasons based on the movements of the planets, there's a rhythm to the ebb and tide, the ebb and flow of the oceans, rainfall, dry spells. If you look out at the universe, as I point out, in a certain way you look, and if you can stop your mind, that is the Lucifer of all illusionary activities, all false rhythms. Pardon me, I got carried away. If you can stop the mind and look out at the universe, just at life here, but first you might start off the universe to try and distract yourself. There is damn little going on, apparently. But that is from a man's view. It won't hurt you to look at it this way, that there is a rhythm. And by rhythm, I'm using for reasons I may or may not get around to, but I was using the kind of strict definition that there's a difference between tempo and cadence and rhythm. Because tempo is just the way you're measuring something, and rhythm is technically, the first definition is that it is in a measured, in a predictable, in a consistent tempo. But a tempo can vary. But at any rate, there is a rhythm that is so far spaced. Let me turn it into an audio metaphor right quick, because I don't know how else to make it make sense, but I assume everyone knows sound waves measured, that the lower they are, if they're drawn out on an oscilloscope or somebody drawing a chart, are very deep if you're getting down below human hearing, get down below 40 or 50 cycles per second. Supposedly no human ear can hear it, and it would be drawn like this, and the higher up it goes, it gets like this. What I'm saying is, if you'll take this as a simile to the rhythm of life, that there is one rhythm for the universe, that there is like a beat that goes, if we're going to call it this way. Now you got your heartbeat going at one rate, and you got the season going at one rate, but there is some, let's just call it a heartbeat or a basic beat of the universe is going, except the universe doesn't stomp its foot during your lifetime. And for all you know, it may not have stomped its foot. In other words, the beat may not have happened since humans have been alive. Again, this has been all kinds of, well, at any rate, that could be. Just assume that it's not going to hurt you. But it is a fact. Because I said even cosmologists, scientific people, no interest in such as this, they realize there is a kind of rhythm of some sort going on in the universe. The rhythmic, the background noise, all kinds of things, the movements of the heavens, there is obviously some sort of rhythm to it. Then there's rhythms with inside rhythms, and there appears to be even tempos. That is, not real rhythms inside the rhythms, which can't be, but it appears that way. But I'm just trying to give you a scheme of things, a spectrum. But if you consider, which won't do you any harm, that there is a rhythm going on, but the beat itself, it is so far between beats that perhaps human civilization has yet to experience one. That it was one before we became conscious, before there was life on this planet, and the next one is yet to happen, which you know can be. It's just a matter of scale. But all the way from that down to, I don't know what the latest theories are, but down to the subatomic, down to the molecular or the subatomic level, there are rhythms going on that are, of course, very fast. But if you just take it from looking out at the universe, or if you took it even from my idea of there being a beat, a rhythm to the universe itself, which could be that the beat itself, the distance, the time is so far between each beat that the humans do not really experience it. That all the way from that, and if it's too much, just consider the movements of our solar system. If you want something that you can actually see and observe, that all the way from that down to something that would be very personal to you, your life, or if you prefer, your heartbeat. So you've got these, if we were going to say that your heartbeat was going, just for instance, then we'd say that, what would the change of seasons would be. I don't know, Of course, I can't stand here and wait this long, but you understand. Well, it would show up, but what? It'd take us 30 or 40 minutes if I was actually going to do it. But the thing is, you can feel a rhythm. There's a change. Everybody feels it when spring returns after winter. But there's this range of rhythms going on. There is a range of rhythms going on. I also suggest to you that people have speculated on with all kinds of weird theories. That is, they put strange maps on it that does not fit any objective purpose. It does not help them understand it. They attempt to deal with it. It comes out in folklore. It comes out in religion because they realize that there's something going on. But I suggest to you there is a heretofore unclearly defined, where all the definitions and descriptions you ever heard didn't help. But that is that there is a rhythm. It's very complex. Now, I assume you all know what complex rhythm. There can be a rhythm going on and be rhythms within it. So it is complex, but at any rate, it's not one man, and it doesn't seem to be as broad-scoped as the change in seasons, and it would be what I'd call the collective rhythm of man, or you might call it civilization, society, but civilization would cover it. That is, the world, and for those of you that don't know, when I say civilization, I mean the output, the apparent output and product, the culmination of man's collective minds. That you look at that, and it would appear to be very complex. To most people, from an ordinary mind, it appears to be unfathomable. That there's too much going on. All you can do is just try to deal with one or two little things at a time. But if you indeed tried to look out at the scope of what's going on this planet, the civilized part, all of the political intrigues, all the wars going on, all the religious conflicts, all the philosophical disputes, all the battering going on between conflicting economic systems. Just, you look at civilization. Pick up a newspaper and look at it, and you think, oh, my God. If I got concerned about every little thing, I'd go crazy. No, you wouldn't go crazy. You just can't do it. But I suggest to you that there's a way to look at it. It is that there is a rhythm to it. And I said that people have, through folklore and religion, they express an awareness of it. It's generally referred to as luck. Sometimes as fate, sometimes as cyclical events. They're not just the change of seasons, that they're ordinary minds that come up throughout history with this kind of metaphorical speculation that there is a season for all things. To quote Solomon, since he's out of copyright, I don't have to pay him. Or David, whoever it was. Anyway, there's a thing for all seasons. That things come, that things mature in their time, and then things die out. You can see it in their fads in clothing, all kinds of things. There would appear to be cycles going on. Another way to look at it rather than cycles, because that is normally attributed either to gods, if it's fate, that some extra systemic force running it, which is absolutely useless. Even if it were true, it does you no good to someone to say that. That they either attribute it to an extra systemic force, like a god, or they attribute it to man himself, which doesn't tell you anything. Because then you get into why do men operate like they do, and the mind can't tell you. So that doesn't tell you anything to say that it is simply cyclical, or that it is the fruits of fate. Because in either way, you're attributing to a force, the tracing of which leads you to no satisfying conclusion. But if you look at it in an impartial way, that it is simply a rhythm that is going on in the universe, it is a rhythm on a smaller scale, a quicker rhythm, or the tempo is faster of this rhythm, that not only affects the physical environment of this planet, but also affects the non-physical. That is, that there is a rhythm to what men ordinarily call civilization. Because everything I described earlier about the conflicts, I assume you understand those of you. And that's what I mean by civilization. We were not talking about change of season, of hurricane season, of typhoon season. I was talking about all things that are in the world of man's mind, of economic theories, religions, philosophies, politics. That all of those things, if you see it as simply being a rhythm, it can explain more. You can see more through that, I suggest, than you can through attributing it to any outside force or to attributing to those being driven by the force. That men do not, even collectively, you know this, men do not get together and decide that they're going to change the economic flow of the stock market. People attempt to after the fact, which is always the mind's last to know, that the mind always will come along and attempt to explain. Men do not get together somewhere in advance and decide, what do we call ourselves? And somebody says, why don't we call ourselves freeloaders? And somebody says, no, how about free hands? And somebody says, no, how about, we'll call ourselves Jews. All right, how about those people across there? How about monkey wrenches? No, we'll call them Muslims. I don't like what they believe. We'll call them Democrats. We're Republicans. Nobody does that before in advance. It's only after it happens. It's like asking a kid, why did you do that? And then they tell you something. Anyone who believes that men are a captain of their fate, why do you always do that? Anyone who believes that man is captain of their fate certainly have no need for such as this, because you're ordinary, sane, and God bless you. As though you needed it and as though it would help, or as though it would do you any good. All you've got to do is look. Everyone knows this. Every sane person on this planet has always known, they still know, in the deepest lucid recess of their private heart of hearts, every sane person on this planet is well aware that they have not the least idea of what the hell is going on. They simply found themselves, as they appear in the mirror, they found themselves as what appears to be this planet and this life, and as far as they know, that's about it. You ask them anything else, they lie. You tell them anything else, and it's the grand deception, because people do not know anything and they're aware of it. If you look at, so I'm saying it's just foolish. Any ordinary person does not really, I'm going to give them credit. If you held them down and you got them down, if you got into their heart of hearts and went down in that dark, warm recess I told you where they were rancid, lucid, and you got them down there, just you and them alone, you turned out the light and you said, nobody's here but us. Do you actually believe that there is some God or something outside this thing that's making people do what they do? And you say, you don't have to answer. I'll just put my hands on your head and shake your head, yes or no. I suggest. If you said, would you believe that men then, if we're not going to attribute man's motivation to a God, to some divine that is external, extra systemic force, do you believe that men themselves are motivating themselves and responsible for what they do? Shake your head again, just yes or no. We're in the dark, no one here. I suggest again. No one but an idiot. You got to have baloney. Several weeks old for brains to actually believe that. So that's not the point. Everybody gets along. You can believe it or not believe it. You can pretend that it's true. But notice this, it doesn't make any difference. It's only people like us that for some reason think, well, it makes a difference to me, by God. I want to know. So, but everyone else, look at religion, look at folklore, look at conventional wisdom, look at all the attempts they make. It reveals the truth. Anything as ridiculous as an inverted anthropomorphic God. Any creature, anybody believe in that or claim to believe in that, they're publicly admitting that they have no idea what's going on. But that is not the kind of conversation that is considered genteel. It can be offensive. It can be offensive this way. If you said that you did not believe it, it can be offensive in that you might spur the other person to have to realize momentarily, well, I don't either. But, don't bring up shit like that. Or if you to say, after years of study and having 3 degrees and everything ranging from social science to hard science, Now that I am licensed to practice psychiatry, law, and surveying in the state of Massachusetts. I have been through 4 wives. I've raised 22 children. I have made several $1 billion, and I'm going to tell you, and all through it, I've had one idea, and that's to learn what life's about. And I'm going to tell you, I do not have the least idea. And this man tells you that. That is not, it's uncivil, because you could cause someone else to momentarily have to think, well, I don't either. But Jesus, you don't have to say that. So those who say they believe in God, those who will say they believe in fate, who believe in psychiatric or psychological explanations for life, sociological explanations, political explanations, the people are actually fairly intelligent. They're being fairly straightforward because they're admitting to you if they're sane. They can't be sane and believe in God. They can't be sane and believe that men are captains of their fate. So if they say that they believe it and they're sane, they're simply upholding the necessary civil veneer, or they're playing their part. They're upholding this camouflage. It's either that or they're crazy. So you can't have it both ways. But if you get past that, back to where I was trying to get you to consider, there is a kind of rhythm. There is a rhythm back to, or what should be of specific interest to people interested in this. You can look at what you're struggling against as to be the rhythm of life. Look in you. Whatever you would call, what would you consider to be the hindrance, the challenge, the problem, the continuing difficulty you have in maintaining some better state of awareness, consciousness, a clearer mind, a non-disturbed state of mind? Whatever you consider internally to be the problem, you put your own description, you say your own word when I say whatever your feeling is, and you think to yourself, you know, hot dogs, whatever you call it. Look at it this way. Hot dogs wouldn't be bad. Not if you get them in their natural state now, not some artificial, but in their natural state, as you know, they're all tied together. One after another. There is a rhythm to a string of sausages, which is, of course, the archetypical hot dog. I'm not talking about, again, these artificial things that they cut up and mangle and put in these plastic packages, and they're separated. When God makes sausages and knockwursts and everything, all forms of sausage, when God creates the genetic or the generic race of sausages, as you know, they're all tied together, and they're just twisted is what makes them appear to be separate. They're just twisted along the line. The point being, there is a rhythm. If you're an observer, not of the human condition, but of the sausage condition, and you looked out upon the race of sausages, and you looked at them from afar, from a superior position, perhaps, assuming that your mind is superior to that of a sausage, you would look at it, and they wouldn't know it. Each little sausage, if it had its own consciousness, it would not know that there was a sausage right in front of it and right after it that was fungible, that there was no difference. But each little sausage, if you listen then to its little consciousness talking to itself, again, I'm assuming that you would be superior to it, since it would be composed of chopped up and shredded cow, pig, and sheep brains and hooves and tongues. But I'm assuming that your consciousness would be in some way superior to it, and if not, at least for the sake of my picture. And so you look down and you have the ability to hear this sausage is talking to itself, its consciousness. And of course, its consciousness, we'll assume, similar to yours, always wants to feel as though it's right. It is individualistic. It in some way is in charge of its fat, probably in this case instead of fate, but we'll let it go. But yet, you look down at it and you realize, no, you are a part of an endless rhythmic production. It's just one damn sausage after another, which is, of course, that was one of their Sachs historians' definition of sausage history, was just one damn link after another. Or maybe I'm confusing the histories, but at any rate, there is a rhythm, back to where we were, there is a rhythm, and it's in you. You can't escape it, any more than you can escape the environment of the universe. I can't resist saying this. I don't know whether you'll capable of you ever feeling it, but you can feel the rhythms from the most extended, damn near that of the universe itself, as I was saying, of the one that perhaps humans as a race haven't even lived to hear the second beat. You can feel very non-mystical ways. It's strictly physical, strictly ordinary, mundane, and everyday. It's running through you. You can't get away from it. It's like the atmosphere of the planet. It's like the electromagnetic field covering this planet. It is like the process of photosynthesis. To say that you can feel it is not that there's something that you need to develop some sort of, not the funny hand gestures again, okay. Not that you have to develop some, couldn't help it, mystical ability to tune into it. It almost takes an effort, and it doesn't take an effort. It takes you being swamped by the mind not to be tuned into it, not to realize that there is a rhythm running through everything. Absolutely unmystical. It's just at a more individualistic or a more individual level than men ever note. You cannot note it, as I said, if you are completely living in the mind. If you're looking for it with the mind, because the mind is run by the same rhythm. That's what I was saying. If you look at your own, I was going to let you put your own term until you got silly with it and decided to call it hot dogs and sausages. But if you looked at your internal problem and you described it as being aimless awareness, just the random running of talking thought to yourself, is it not rhythmical? Does it not come and go at a measured tempo? If you say you don't know, then I'm saying this, you just haven't looked at it in that way, because you damn sure know it comes and goes. You damn sure know it's here and it's back. In fact, I didn't ever want to say this, but now I got myself into it. Speaking of the great conspiratorial theories, there is one that you probably hadn't heard about. It's alleged that there is some secret group that had something to do with, I don't know, activities such as this, who were the inventors, and they're the ones who produce it. No one, here's what's funny, no one can find the factory where it comes from, but they're the ones who make those little animals that go in the back of your car that go. Huh? I trust you see the connection, what I'm saying, huh? Just thought I'd point it out to you. That doesn't remind anyone of their internal sausage activity. Yes, I'm a deep thinker. There is a rhythm. It would be easy. Here is about as close as ordinary awareness that ordinary men speak of this rhythm, and that is habit. That is about as close in whatever language, but in English would be the word habit. It is proverbial to say that man is a creature of habit. People will say that, like all proverbial bits of wisdom, when it suits their exculpatory purpose, that a man will go, well, we're all victim of habit, and then forget about it. But if you could see continually, if you absolutely saw, but you can't with the mind because it is the manifestation of this rhythm, this habit. But if you could in some way see that man is a creature of habit, and you could see that under every possible condition, that was the background noise of your consciousness, or it was like painted on the back of your skull, that everything you looked at, all that you thought about, you simultaneously held this awareness, simultaneously, that man is a victim of habit. Within a short period of time, you would not be. You could not stay in the ordinary state of consciousness with a continual awareness that man is a victim of habit, because you are. And again, it's nothing astounding. You can get ordinary minds. You can get your mind for the moment to realize it. I'm not going through it, but you can do it. You can do it to anybody. You can start off that we are prone to habit, and talk a few more minutes, give a few examples, and get people to go, oh, yeah. And it's not hard at all to get people down to the point it becomes, to their way of thinking, like an intellectual conundrum. You just drive them into a corner because you get it down to the level you can keep painting them toward that corner about, well, we tend to be creatures of habit. And they go, yeah. And you keep painting a little closer. It won't take, I'm not going through it, but a few minutes, and then you, yeah, and they'll keep agreeing, and suddenly you got them to where there's nowhere else to go, and that's when they have to go, because you're right, they're right to the point of seeing that we are a victim of habit, period. Forget the conditions, forget the modifiers. Unconditionally, we're a victim of habit. But when you drive the mind to that place, it will suddenly jump into a new sausage link. It will jump the beat. It will go somewhere else because the mind is absolutely painted into an untenable position, an explosive. It turns backwards on itself. It reflects on itself. It's like taking a mirror and turn it the other way around. It cannot see that. That's the final straw. But at any rate, it's not uncommon for people to talk about that we should struggle against habit, but every time they do again, it is on a localized, specific, limited basis. That one man will tell another, you got some bad habits. You smoke, you drink, you eat too much. You ought to stop that. And when pushed, they might say, I probably should not be such a victim of habit. To attempt to do this, there's a way to use it. The thing about habit, but I suggest that you equate it, that you turn it into a rhythm. It's the same thing. If it didn't make any sense when it was read, which it obviously didn't, that it said at the higher latitudes, habit or rhythm equals death. That doesn't mean at the North Pole. God damn it. That's not the only higher latitudes. Who the hell cares what's going at the North Pole? I don't care if it goes to hell. It's your upper latitudes. Habit equals death. That rhythm of life, the rhythm in you, it's not life's problem. It's not life's fault. It's not civilization's fault. It's not the collective activities of other people that's the fault. There is a rhythm, and life is not going to change the rhythm. You should pray that it doesn't. Anyway, there is a rhythm, without sounding too metaphysical, that the rhythm itself is part of what holds everything together. Or you can imagine this, if something was based on a rhythm. The vibrations of the atomic makeup of anything, of a chemical, of an element. It's the vibrations. As the rhythm fell apart, it explodes. It would fall apart. The element itself, matter, would fall apart. So it's not anything spooky. It's not anything unknown. So in one sense, you're not fighting against rhythm that has been adversely imposed on you. It is simply the rhythm of life itself. From the universal scale, we'll consider the smallest scale that should be of interest to you, to this. In fact, that's the only scale that should be of interest because it's the only one that you can have any possible effect over. If you see this as being a rhythm, then, and you got to not just see, anyway, you know what I mean by that, if you can do it to where you can feel it, even if you just start off trying to look at it that way, and then you realize, in a sense you begin to feel, realize it, then you have an immediate something to do, and that is to alter your tempo. The easiestly described, and perhaps apparently easiest to make use of initially, is to alter the rhythm at which you live physically. I am, as you might already see, exaggerating, but it does not require that. All it requires is that you be aware. This is not the first time I've pointed this out, but if you combine that with giving over your attention only to the immediate here and now, and combine that with an altered rhythm physically. The combined results I recommend most heartily. One complements the other. One helps remind you of the other. One helps complement the other. One helps remind you of the other. Yeah, but one then helps complement the other. Is that all there is to what you had to say? Yes.